Personal trainer movement specialist here, Adam Witt. I'm going to take you through a dynamic hip warm-up, something great before workouts or competition, or just to work on that hip mobility. So we're going to start here from the ground up. I think it's good to start with a few stretches where you are supported through your trunk, and just take them to whatever range of motion. This is the floor wiper, working our hip flexion coming up and rotation across the body. Trying to lock down that upper body. Same thing with this one, scorpion stretch, really trying to focus the movement through the hips and the lower back and locking down that upper body. Great complement to that floor wiper. This time we're extending through the hip and rotating back and across. So just kind of the opposite action of that floor wiper stretch. So you'll see with a lot of the stretches in this video that we're really complementing internal, external rotation, flexion, extension. So I think it's important to get everything involved, kind of find where your immobilities are. And we kind of come up to a seated position, and we're going to work some internal hip rotation here. So very important to lock the leg that is not moving, so you're not just swaying both hips side to side. You drop one knee down, don't let that other leg move anywhere. So you're really trying to focus one hip at a time, and you will see with the external rotation, we'll be trying to do the same thing here. So dropping out, don't let that other leg come with it. So I actually try pushing a little bit out on the stationary knee so I don't come with that stretch. That way you can really get a good effective stretch on the leg you're trying to move through. These two seated exercises, stretches, complement each other, internal and external rotation. And then we take it up to a half kneeling or overstrided lunge position here. So we are going to just kind of grind into that hip a little bit, just open up that hip socket, take it to whatever range of motion that hip allows you. Don't force anything. It's nice to kind of get in this deep stride and work that. You will feel a lot going on with that stretch there. And then I stay on this side and I just transition into a little trunk rotations, same position. I think it's important to open up a lot of the tissue around the hip, not just the hip itself. So we're getting a little bit of lower back, oblique, abdominal, pull right in that stretch too. So, and then probably the hardest transition here is working into a pigeon pose, slowly kind of walking back and forth into that position. Everything we're doing here is slow and controlled, so you can really be responsive with your body, knowing what it can and cannot take. And then we will work into the other side. So same thing. Start with the hip work from this overstrided lunge. Now for me, you can see here that foot wants to lift up off the ground almost immediately. I have a big asymmetry left to right. It's a nice thing with a lot of these stretches, focusing left side, right side, one direction, another direction. You can find out pretty quickly where your asymmetries are, whether it's a mobility issue, stability issue. This will address a lot of those. So, and then we work that trunk rotation. So with this trunk rotation, not much different left to right. So that asymmetry that I have is a little more strict through the hip. And then same thing, finishing up with that pigeon pose back and forth. And don't worry about transitioning all the way into that pigeon if your body doesn't allow you to. It might just be a few strides back and forth, walking the hands. If you can, try laying into that position, but ultimately you're trying to give yourself a comfortable stretch. So then we work up to our feet. Classic combo here, inchworm to cobras. Work a little flexion through the hip and then into a little extension right there. Same thing with the lower back. If you can lock the legs out. Try hinging through the hips at the very top. We're really trying to work through the hips. These last couple stretch series, you get very active with it, so you'll be very warm, which I like it as a warm-up, not just a stretching circuit here. So one of my favorite ones here, now we're working a diagonal walkout, inchworm to cobra. The feet rotate to the direction that you are walking out to, so you'll notice that my feet do pivot. I'm not keeping my feet pointed forward. I will rotate my feet in the direction that I walk out and push those hips in. And as I do a few more, you can see I get a little bit wider with my base. I sit back into that stretch a little bit more and kind of let that stretch gradually progress. Kind of one of those little bit of everything type stretches. You'll feel it in a lot of places. And then we transition into the last series here, which we're going to go into a toe touch to a deep squat. At the bottom of each squat, you're really trying to sink that butt down and push that chest out. This is a hard movement for a lot of people just to get into, so I like to finish with this one. If I feel comfortable in that squat, I know that my hips are becoming ready to go, and then to finish out, I'll see if I can work some trunk rotations in there too. So a lot of times this is something that is kind of that last piece where if you feel pretty comfortable hanging in that squat, rotating, reaching, those hips are good to go. So kind of a wrap up here. The big thing is we're working from the ground up. We start with those lying exercises, the floor wipers and scorpions, then go into our seated hip work, then that overstrided lunge series with the hip work, elbow drop, the rotation, and that pigeon, inchworm to cobra variations, and then that deep squat series.